From Barcelona's biggest disappointment to PSG's most dangerous weapon, Ousmane Dembele just proved that sometimes you don't need to change the player, you need to change everything else. This is how a €105 million flop became Europe's most feared winger. Imagine this, you're 20 years old, Barcelona just paid €105 million for you, and suddenly you're being called the next big thing in world football. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, for Ousmane Dembele, it quickly became a nightmare. Fast forward to today, and that same player is absolutely tearing up European football with PSG, proving that sometimes the most beautiful stories are the ones about second chances. You know what we love in football? It's that it gives you these incredible redemption arcs, players who everyone writes off, who get labelled as flops or wastes of talent, and then they come back stronger than ever. Dembele's story is beyond goals and assists, though, trust me, we'll get to those incredible numbers. It's about resilience, about finding yourself again when everyone's telling you you're not good enough. Let's rewind to where it all started. Ousmane Dembele was born on May 15, 1997, in Vernon, a small town in Normandy, France, but he grew up in Évreux, about an hour west of Paris. Now, Évreux isn't exactly a football hotbed, it's one of those quiet French towns where not much happens, but for young Ousmane, it was where his dreams began. His story starts like so many great footballers, a kid obsessed with the ball. But here's what made Ousmane different from the beginning. He was genuinely two-footed. I mean, really, two-footed. Most players favor one foot heavily, even the ambidextrous ones. But Ousmane, you literally couldn't tell which was his stronger foot. He'd dribble with his left, shoot with his right, cross with either. It was like watching someone play with cheat codes enabled.
Vous êtes droitier ou gaucher?
Gaucher.
Sûr, parce que vous marquez aussi le droit.
Ouais, je suis plus gaucher.
Et les pénaltys, vous les tirez pas du droit?
Si.
Pourquoi?
His parents, Fatima and Moussa, were supportive but also realistic. They knew their son was talented, but they also knew how difficult it was to make it as a professional footballer. His father had immigrated from Mauritania, and like many immigrant families, education was the priority. Football, it was fine for a hobby, but it needed to take a backseat to schoolwork. Young Ousmane joined his local club, Évreux FC 27, when he was just 6 years old. The coaches there, they still talk about him today. They say he was this shy, quiet kid off the pitch, but put a ball at his feet and he transformed into this fearless player who would take on anyone. Size, it didn't matter. Age, that didn't matter either. If you had the ball and Ousmane wanted it, you were in trouble. By the time he was 13, it was clear that local football wasn't going to be enough for him. Stade Rennais, one of France's most respected academies, came calling. For a family from Évreux, this was huge. Rennais had produced players like Johan Gourcuff and Sylvain Wiltord. This was the real deal. Moving to Rennais meant leaving home at 13 years old. Can you imagine 13 years old, away from your family, living in dormitories with other hopeful kids, all chasing the same impossible dream? But Ousmane adapted quickly. The coaches at Rennais were impressed, not just by his technical ability, but by his mentality. He wasn't fazed by the pressure, wasn't intimidated by older players, he just played his game. By 2015, Ousmane was ready for his professional debut with Rennes's first team. He was 18, full of confidence, and ready to show the world what he could do. His breakthrough season was incredible. 12 goals and 5 assists in 26 appearances. For a teenager in Ligue 1, those numbers were exceptional. But here's where the story gets interesting. Borussia Dortmund, one of Europe's most exciting clubs, they'd been watching. They were famous for developing young talent. Think Jadon Sancho, Christian Pulisic, Erling Haaland. They saw something special in Ousmane and made an offer that Rennais couldn't refuse. €15 million for a 19-year-old. It was a risk, but Dortmund specialized in these kind of calculated gambles. The Bundesliga was perfect for Ousmane's development. The pace of the game suited him. The tactical flexibility allowed him to express himself. And most importantly, the club was patient with young players. Under Thomas Tuchel's guidance, he flourished, playing alongside players like Marco Reus and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He learned what it meant to compete at the highest level. His numbers at Dortmund were impressive: 10 goals and 21 assists in 50 appearances. But, again, statistics don't tell the whole story. It was the way he played, the creativity he brought, the unpredictability that made him so dangerous. Defenders never knew what he was going to do because, honestly, neither did he sometimes. He played on pure instinct, and it was beautiful to watch. Then came the call that would change everything and nearly break him. Barcelona had just lost Neymar to PSG for 222 million euros, and they were desperate to replace him. They looked at Ousmane, saw his potential, and decided to bet big, 105 million euros big. At the time, it made him one of the most expensive players in football history. The pressure was insane. You have to understand, this wasn't just about replacing any player. This was about replacing Neymar, one of the most exciting footballers on the planet. The Barcelona fans expected magic, the media expected immediate results, and Ousmane? Well, he was just trying to figure out how to handle it all. His first season started promisingly enough. He scored on his debut against Espanyol, and for a brief moment, it looked like Barcelona had found their Neymar replacement. But then came September 2017, and with it, the injury that would define his Barcelona career, a hamstring tear in his very first La Liga start, 4 months on the sideline. Just like that, the momentum was gone. And that was just the beginning. Over his 6 years at Barcelona, he suffered 13 different injuries, 7 of them hamstring-related. It was like watching a brilliant musician who could only perform half the concerts he was supposed to. Every time he built up form, every time he started to show what he was capable of, another injury would strike. The criticism was relentless. Spanish media called him fragile, questioned his professionalism, suggested he wasn't committed enough. Some reports claimed he was often late to training, that he preferred playing video games to working on his fitness. Whether those stories were true or not, they created this narrative that Ousmane was somehow responsible for his injury problems. But here's what people didn't see. Behind the scenes, Ousmane was working harder than ever to get back to full fitness. He was consulting specialists all over Europe, trying different training methods, doing everything possible to solve his injury issues. The frustration must have been overwhelming. Don't get me wrong, when he was fit, he showed glimpses of absolute brilliance. That goal against Tottenham in the Champions League, when he cut inside and curled the ball into the top corner, pure poetry. Or that assist for Lionel Messi against Real Madrid in El Clásico, the vision, the execution, it was world class.
I vaig ser molt honest, ell va dir que sempre volia quedar-se al Barça, però que no renovava i jo pensava, haurà firmat per un altre equip, no?
But football, it's ultimately about consistency, and injuries made consistency impossible. By 2023, it was clear that both Barcelona and Ousmane needed a fresh start. The relationship had become toxic, with neither party able to unlock the player's full potential. The summer of 2023 was a turning point. PSG came calling with an offer of 50 million euros, half of what Barcelona had paid, but still a significant investment in a player many considered damaged goods. Luis Enrique, the new PSG manager, he saw something different. He saw a player who needed a new environment, new teammates, and most importantly, new confidence. The transfer made sense on multiple levels. PSG needed creativity after losing Messi and Neymar. Ousmane needed a fresh start where he could rebuild his reputation. And Paris? Well, Paris was home, playing in front of French crowds, being closer to family, speaking his native language. These things matter more than people realize. But there were legitimate concerns. Would the injury problems follow him to Paris? Could he handle the pressure of being PSG's main creative force? Was he mentally ready for another high-pressure situation after what happened at Barcelona? The early signs were promising. Ousmane looked relaxed in his first interviews. He was smiling again, and most importantly, he was staying fit. That first training session video that PSG released showed a player who was hungry, who was still excited to be there. The old spark was back in his eyes. His debut against Lorient was everything PSG fans could have hoped for. Not just because he played well, but because he looked happy. You could see the joy in his movement, the confidence in his decision-making. This was the Ousmane that Dortmund fans remembered, the one who could make the impossible look routine. Luis Enrique knew exactly how to get the best out of Ousmane Dembele. Instead of locking him into a rigid role, he gave him freedom across the front line, sometimes wide on the right, sometimes drifting left, sometimes even operating more centrally. That unpredictability made him one of PSG's most dangerous weapons. What changed wasn't just his positioning, but his decision-making. In Barcelona, he often carried the burden of being Neymar's replacement, expected to solve games alone. In Paris, he became part of a fluid attacking system, surrounded by teammates whose movements created constant options. This allowed him to focus on what he does best: breaking lines, destabilizing defenses, and creating chances. His passing improved, his vision sharpened, and he embraced the defensive side of the game, pressing high, tracking back, showing the work rate modern football demands. It was the evolution from a raw talent into a more competitive footballer. Under Enrique, Ousmane wasn't beyond the winger who entertained with dribbles. He was a vital piece of PSG's tactical puzzle, a player whose intelligence started to match his natural flair. For PSG, Ousmane Dembele's arrival represented more than just another high-profile signing. It symbolized a shift. After years of relying on global superstars, the club began shaping a new identity, one based on collective strength, tactical balance, and players with hunger to prove themselves. Dembele, he'd become part of that new DNA. His creativity and unpredictability gave PSG a dimension they'd lacked after the departures of Messi and Neymar. In Ligue 1, his ability to unlock compact defenses proved decisive. In Europe, even without the headline numbers of a striker, his presence on the pitch stretched opponents, created space, and opened doors for his teammates. Maybe his biggest impact wasn't just technical, it was psychological. After years of being labelled fragile or inconsistent, his resilience at PSG became a message in itself, to the squad, to the fans, and even to critics. He showed that setbacks don't define a career, and that belief, when nurtured in the right environment, can change everything. So, where does this leave Ousmane Dembele's legacy? Well, for starters, he's completely rewritten the narrative around his career. The injury-prone Barcelona flop story, it's been replaced by PSG's redemption success story, and honestly, it's a much better story. At 28 years old, he's entering what should be the prime years of his career. The injury problems that plagued his early 20s, they seem to be behind him. His tactical understanding has never been better, and his confidence, it's at an all-time high. His influence on young French players has been significant too. He's shown that setbacks don't have to define your career, and that with the right environment and the right support, you can overcome almost anything. Kids growing up in France now look at Ousmane and see possibility, not limitation. The technical aspects of his game have evolved beautifully. His passing range has improved, his defensive contribution is consistent, and his leadership qualities are developing nicely. He's more than just a talented individual, he's becoming a complete footballer. Looking ahead, there's genuine excitement about what he can achieve, with PSG building a young, hungry squad around him. With his injury problems seemingly resolved, and with his confidence sky high, the next few years could be absolutely spectacular. If you found yourself captivated by Dembele's remarkable journey, smash that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into football's most transformational comebacks. Because it's rare to see a player rewrite his story so completely, silencing the critics and embracing a second chance with such power and grace. Paris has witnessed Dembele's redemption.